Welcome to another week of the Nightly Nuge. Good evening, none other than full-time Nuge. How you doing today, Ted?
I'm doing full-time fun. I had this life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness thing going on, but it's just not life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. It's gonzo life, liberty, and pursuit of gonzo happiness. So I'm so proud and excited and always eager to share the perspective of not just the goofy guitar player, but the great families that I hang around with every day. So The Nightly Nuge is actually the nightly pulse of good Americans everywhere and beyond. By the way, Keith, people from all around the globe come and check out the Nightly Nuge because truth, logic, and common sense is much celebrated across the hinterland. So a big salute to you, Keith, for joining me around the Truth, Logic, and Common Sense Nightly Nuge campfire.
Well, thanks, Ted. And you know what? I'm going to try to channel those listeners because, as you know, we're getting tons of emails, tons of requests, tons of questions, tons of comments. And so I'm going to try to channel our listeners. And basically this week, my theme is, it's a world in crisis. It's actually American crisis as well. Let's go to the Ukraine. Everybody's talking about the Ukraine. People are writing in wanting to know what started this, Ted. Why do you think we're in this? People hear a lot about NATO. I'll just say this for our listeners. There's only 30 countries in NATO. It's highly scrutinized. And the reason it is difficult to be part of NATO, be a NATO country, is because if you attack one NATO country, all of the other NATO countries must engage war, people, supplies, all the above. And so that's a problem. All right, Ted, brings me to the question. Vice President Kamala Harris was in Munich in February. And she was at a conference there, and she called for the admission of the Ukraine into NATO. I have a listener here that says, do you believe that Putin acted as quickly as he did for fear that Ukraine was actually going to get into NATO, which would allow NATO countries to put nukes and so forth right on his border? What's your take on what Vice President Harris did in Munich that may have led to this?
Well, as you know, all imminent concerns are local. And I would like to think that on the Nugent border, we have it rather secured because the word is universally understood. Don't tread on me. We actually have a flag that says, don't Ted on me. Because my borders and the security of my family is my number one responsibility and my number one accomplishment, because the message I sent out is not ambiguous. It's you're not allowed to trespass on my property. And if you're willing to trespass on my property, you may have even further indecent and dangerous thoughts on your mind. Because if you breach one sense of decency, I'm committed to the historical evidence that you're capable of breaching more dangerous limits of security and conditions. And that's the Ted Nugent security. I would like to think that Putin, the murderous punk that he is, the tyrannical monster that he is, historically has to have the same security on his borders. And when the NATO countries threaten to be right on his doorstep, he has to respond. Let me put it in simple terms. I spoke to some real heroes, boots on the ground in Ukraine. Ukraine is not an innocent player here. Putin is clearly a guilty player here. So our prayers are with those poor families in the Ukraine who just wanted to have a semblance of quality of life and justice and goodwill and decency, who are now escaping with the clothes on their back to Poland and elsewhere, NATO members. I don't trust NATO. I don't trust Putin. I don't trust Zelensky. And I sure as hell don't trust Joe Biden or the Department of Defense. The whole hell-raising about the military-industrial complex I dismissed for many years. Now it cannot be dismissed. These monsters are playing their games to enrich their inner core. And that's the real horror that's unfolding before our very eyes because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Powerful words, Ted. When we come back tomorrow night, I'd like to continue this conversation with you, roll right into some of the energy concerns that are going on over in the Ukraine right now. We'll come back tomorrow and discuss more about a world in crisis, really America in crisis, with some more Nightly Nuge tomorrow night.